the grand hall of Buckingham Palace fell silent. Every eye turned toward the doorway. Something terrible was about to happen. Kate Middleton stood frozen near the marble staircase. Her face had gone pale. Across the room, Camilla, Queen Consort, moved forward with fury burning in her eyes. The air felt thick with tension. Between them stood a man in his 70s, tall, silver-haired, wearing a simple dark suit. His name was Richard Ashford. For 30 years he had protected Queen Elizabeth II, now retired. He had returned to the palace for one reason: to tell the truth. Before we continue this incredible story, if you love real emotional moments from the royal family, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. 3 days earlier, a rumor had spread through the palace like poison. Someone whispered that Kate had insulted Camilla in private. The accusation was specific, cruel, the kind of words that could never be forgiven. Kate denied it immediately. She had witnesses. She had her schedule. She had been in a completely different wing of the palace at that time. But Camilla didn't believe her. Or perhaps Camilla didn't want to believe her. The tension between them wasn't new. Since King Charles took the throne, small cracks had formed. Camilla wanted respect, recognition, the love of the people. But Kate had something Camilla would never have. The people already adored Kate. They trusted her. They saw her as the future, and some believed Camilla couldn't stand it. The accusation came from Lady Victoria Pemberton, close friend of Camilla's. Victoria swore she heard Kate say those terrible words. She claimed she was walking past a drawing room. She heard Kate's voice clearly, laughing, mocking, speaking about Camilla in a way that was unforgivable. Charles was caught in the middle. His wife, his daughter-in-law, his kingdom watching. He called for a private meeting. No press, no public statements. Just family. But someone else had heard about the meeting. Richard Ashford, the former guard, the man who had stood in shadows for 3 decades, watching everything, saying nothing until now. Richard arrived at the palace gates on a cold Tuesday morning. The guard on duty recognized him immediately. Old loyalty runs deep. He was led inside without question. Richard carried a small leather folder. Inside were documents, security logs, camera schedules, and a handwritten note from Queen Elizabeth herself. He walked through corridors he knew better than his own home. Past portraits of kings and queens. Past rooms where history had been made. He felt the weight of what he was about to do. When he reached the private office where the meeting would take place, he didn't knock. He simply opened the door and stepped inside. Kate looked up first. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. William sat beside her, jaw tight with anger. Charles stood by the window, looking older than his years. And Camilla sat in a high-backed chair, arms crossed, face hard as stone. "Who let you in here?" Camilla's voice was ice. Richard didn't flinch. He had faced terrorist threats. He had stood between bullets and the Queen. He wasn't afraid of anyone in this room. "Your Majesty," he said, nodding to Charles. Then he turned to Kate. "Your Royal Highness." Finally, his eyes settled on Camilla. "Ma'am." He placed the leather folder on the table. "I have evidence," he said quietly. "Evidence that will end this matter once and for all." Camilla's face changed. Just for a moment. Fear flickered in her eyes. What did Richard know? Charles reached for the folder, but Camilla's hand shot out faster. She grabbed it first. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped the leather. "This is a private family matter," she said, her voice sharp. "You have no place here, Mr. Ashford." Richard stood perfectly still. His military training never left him. Calm, under pressure. Never reactive. Always purposeful. "With respect, ma'am, this stopped being private the moment Lady Victoria made her accusation public within the palace. Staff are talking. The story will leak. It always does." William stood up slowly. He was tall, like his brother Harry used to stand beside him. But there was something different in William now. A hardness. The weight of knowing he would one day be king. "What evidence?" William asked. Richard gestured to the folder still in Camilla's hands. Security logs from the day in question. Camera footage schedules? And something else. Paused. Everyone in the room leaned forward slightly. A conversation I overheard 2 weeks before Queen Elizabeth passed, between Her Majesty and myself. The room went cold. Speaking about the late Queen still hurt. The wound was too fresh. Even Camilla's expression softened for just a moment. Kate wiped her eyes. What did she say? Richard's voice was gentle now. She was worried. In those final weeks, she saw things changing. She knew what was coming. The new reign, new dynamics. She told me that she feared Kate would be targeted, that there were those who saw her popularity as a threat. Camilla stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor. How dare you come here and suggest I'm not suggesting anything? Richard interrupted, his voice still calm. I'm telling you what the Queen told me. She asked me to keep records, to document certain behaviors, to protect Kate if needed after she was gone. Charles finally spoke. His voice was tired, sad. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because she asked me not to, sir. She said you had enough burden. She said you would need to make your own way. But she also said if Kate was ever falsely accused of something, if her character was attacked, then I should speak. The folder still sat in Camilla's hands. She hadn't opened it. She was afraid. Everyone could see it. William moved closer to the table. Lady Victoria claims she heard Kate in the blue drawing room at 3:15 on Thursday afternoon. She says Kate was speaking to someone on the phone, mocking Camilla's fashion choices, her public speaking, her role as queen consort. Kate's voice broke. I wasn't even in that wing. I was with Charlotte at her school concert rehearsal. There are dozens of witnesses, Richard nodded. I know, because I checked. The school has sign-in logs, photographs from that afternoon. Kate arrived at 2:30. She didn't leave until after 5. Camilla's hand trembled slightly. Then Victoria was mistaken about the time. No, ma'am. Richard's eyes were steady. Lady Victoria knew exactly what she was doing. The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, impossible to ignore. Charles stepped forward. What are you saying? Richard reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small digital recorder. Old technology, but reliable. The kind intelligence services used before everything went digital. Queen Elizabeth asked me to keep this, just in case. She recorded a conversation. Just days before she passed, he pressed play. The voice that filled the room made everyone freeze. It was her, Elizabeth. Weak, tired, but unmistakably her. Richard, if you're listening to this, then something has happened. Someone has tried to hurt Catherine. I know how these games are played. I've watched them for 70 years. There was a long pause. The sound of breathing, fragile, mortal. Lady Victoria Pemberton has been feeding information to certain tabloids for years. Small things, harmless gossip. But she's ambitious. And she's loyal to Camilla in ways that aren't always healthy. Watch her. Protect Catherine. She's the future of this family. The recording ended. Silence crashed down like thunder. Kate covered her mouth with her hand. William's jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. Charles looked like he'd been struck. Camilla's face had lost all color. She slowly opened the folder. Inside were printed emails. Messages between Victoria and a journalist. Conversations planning how to damage Kate's reputation. How to create doubt. How to whisper poison until it became truth. And at the bottom, a photograph. Victoria and Camilla having tea, laughing. The date stamp showed it was taken. 2 days after Queen Elizabeth's funeral, Camilla looked up. Her eyes met Richard's. Did you know about this? Charles asked his wife. The question broke something in the room. Camilla's lips parted, but no words came out. The silence stretched, unbearable, suffocating. Every second that passed made her look more guilty. I asked you a question, Charles said again. His voice was different now. Not angry, worse. Disappointed. Kate stood up. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to move. She walked to the window where Charles had been standing. Outside, tourists gathered at the palace gates, taking pictures, smiling. They had no idea what was happening inside these walls. "Your Majesty," Kate said softly, still looking outside, "I don't need an apology. I just need the truth to be known. My children will grow up in this family, in this life. They need to see that truth matters." William moved beside his wife. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Protective. Solid. Unmovering, Camilla finally found her voice. "Victoria's my friend, yes. But I didn't know she would do something like this. I didn't ask her to." Richard stepped forward slightly. "Ma'am, with respect, there are 17 emails in that folder. 12 of them include messages where Victoria asks for your approval before speaking to the press. Your responses are there too." Camilla's face flushed. Anger and embarrassment mixed together. "Those were about harmless things. Fashion, public events. Nothing malicious." Email 9, Richard said quietly. Dated 3 weeks ago. Victoria writes, "The people love Kate too much. We need to remind them she's not perfect. I'll find something." Your response was, "Do what you feel is necessary." The room tilted. Kate felt William's hand tighten on her shoulder. Charles closed his eyes briefly, as if praying for this to be a nightmare he could wake from. Camilla shook her head. "That's not what I meant. I didn't mean for her to lie, to create false accusations." "Then what did you mean?" William's voice cut through the room like a blade. "What did you think she would do? Write a pleasant article about cake recipes?" For the first time, Camilla had no answer. She sank back into her chair. The folder slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. Papers scattered across the expensive carpet. Kate turned from the window. Her eyes were dry now. No more tears. Something had shifted inside her. She'd spent years being polite, careful, never making waves, always smiling for the cameras, always perfect. "I came into this family with nothing but love," Kate said. Her voice was steady, strong. "I didn't ask for the attention. I didn't ask to be compared to Diana. I just wanted to support William, to raise our children, to serve this country." She looked directly at Camilla. "But you've seen me as competition from the beginning, haven't you?" Camilla's jaw tightened. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Kate took a step forward. "Every poll, every headline, every time the people show me kindness, I can see it in your face. Resentment, fear. You think I'm trying to take something from you, but I'm not. There's enough room in this family for both of us. There always was." William looked at his father. "What happens now?" Charles seemed to age another decade in that moment. Being king was supposed to be his destiny, his purpose. But it felt like drowning. Every decision pulled him under. "Victoria will be removed from court," Charles said finally. "Permanently. No access. No invitations. No contact with any member of this family." Camilla's eyes widened. "Charles, she's been my friend for 20 years. She tried to destroy Catherine's reputation with lies," Charles said firmly. "That's not friendship. That's betrayal." He turned to Richard. "Thank you for bringing this forward. My mother trusted you." "I see why." Richard nodded once. He had done what he came to do. He gathered the scattered papers, placed them back in the folder, and set it on the table. "There's one more thing," Richard said quietly. Everyone looked at him. What else could there possibly be? The Queen recorded one more message. "This one is for Kate. She asked that I play it only if Kate was present, and only after the truth was revealed." Kate's breath caught. A message. From Elizabeth. For her, Richard pulled out the recorder again. He pressed play. Elizabeth's voice returned. "Softer this time. Almost warm, Catherine, my dear. If you're hearing this, then someone has tried to hurt you. I'm sorry I'm not there to stand beside you. But know this. You are stronger than you believe. You are more loved than you know. And you will be a queen someday, not because of title, but because of character." There was a pause. The sound of breath. Struggling. Determined. "Don't let them break you. Don't let them make you small. This family needs your light. The world needs your heart. Be brave, my dear. Be kind. But never let them make you less than you are. The recording ended. Kate's hand covered her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of strength, of validation, of knowing she had been seen, truly seen. What would Camilla do now? The weight of the Queen's words settled over the room. It's like a blanket of snow, heavy, unavoidable, impossible to brush away. Camilla stared at the recorder in Richard's hand. Her face had gone from flushed to pale. She looked smaller somehow, as if the furniture around her had grown while she shrank. She never trusted me, Camilla whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Even after everything, all these years, she never believed I belonged here. Charles moved toward his wife. For a moment, compassion crossed his face. Decades of love, struggle, secrets, scandal, they had fought so hard to be together. And now, in the moment he finally wore the crown, everything was crumbling. That's not true, Charles said softly. My mother respected you, but she was also a protector. She saw patterns. She prepared for possibilities. She prepared for me to hurt Kate, Camilla said bitterly. That's what this is. She knew I would be seen as the villain. William stepped forward. His voice was controlled but firm. You're not the villain because of what the Queen thought. You're in this position because of the choices you made. The emails. The encouragement. The silence when you should have spoken. Richard quietly packed away the recorder. His job was nearly done. But he remained standing, watchful, the way he'd stood in corridors and doorways for 30 years. Always present. Always aware. Kate wiped her face. She looked at Camilla with something unexpected. Not anger. Not hatred. Something closer to sadness. I never wanted to be your enemy, Kate said quietly. I still don't. Camilla looked up. For the first time, something genuine flickered in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or exhaustion from carrying so much resentment for so long. The press will destroy me when this comes out, Camilla said. Her voice cracked. They've been waiting for me to fail. This will be everywhere. Charles stood straighter. King again, not just a husband. Nothing will come out. This stays within these walls. William's head snapped toward his father. What? We handled this privately, Charles said firmly. Victoria is banned. The truth is known among us. But the public doesn't need to know. It will only create more division, more pain. Kate looked at William. They had that silent conversation that couples develop over years. 1,000 words passing between them without sound. No, Kate said finally. Everyone turned to her. We don't bury this. Charles frowned. Catherine, I'm trying to protect you. If this story gets out, the media will turn it into a war. Camilla versus Kate, the new queen consort against the future queen. It will be Diana all over again. Is that what you want? Kate's voice didn't waver. I want honesty. I'm tired of protecting institutions at the expense of people. I'm tired of smiling for cameras while lies are whispered behind closed doors. If we hide this, it will happen again. Maybe not to me, but to Charlotte someday, or to George's future wife. This pattern has to stop, Richard spoke up quietly. If I may, Your Majesty. The Queen felt the same way. She told me that silence protected the institution, but poisoned the family. She wanted things to change. She just didn't know how to begin. Camilla stood abruptly. So what do you want, Catherine? A public trial? Should I go on television and confess? Shall we let the tabloids tear me apart for entertainment? No, Kate said simply. I want you to apologize. Really apologize. Not because Charles tells you to. Not because you're afraid of consequences, but because you understand what you did was wrong. The room went silent. Charles looked at his wife. William watched Kate with something like pride in his eyes. Richard remained still as stone. Camilla's hands trembled. She clasped them together to hide it. Years of being judged. Years of being compared. Years of being the woman who broke up a fairy tale. It had hardened her, built walls, made her sharp and defensive. But Kate wasn't Diana. She wasn't fragile or performative or easily broken. Kate was steady, rooted. She didn't need the world to love her, though they did. She just needed to be true to herself. "I'm sorry," Camilla said. The words came out rough, unpracticed. "I'm sorry I let my insecurities control me. I'm sorry I encouraged Victoria. I'm sorry I saw you as a threat instead of family." Kate nodded slowly. "Thank you. It wasn't enough." Everyone in the room knew it wasn't enough. But it was a beginning. Charles exhaled deeply. "Victoria will be dealt with quietly. No statements, no drama. She'll simply disappear from our lives. As for the rest, we move forward, together. No more sides. No more games." He looked at each person in turn. His wife, his son, his daughter-in-law, and the old guard who had served his mother faithfully. "Richard, thank you. Your service to my mother, and now to this family, won't be forgotten." Richard bowed his head slightly. "It was my honor, Your Majesty." He turned to leave, his duty finally complete. But as he reached the door, Kate spoke. "Mr. Ashford." He turned back. Kate crossed the room and extended her hand. He took it, and she held it firmly. "Thank you for protecting me, even when she wasn't here to do it herself." Richard's eyes, trained to show nothing, softened just slightly. "She loved you very much, Your Royal Highness. She saw in you what this family needs. What this country needs." He left quietly. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and the four of them stood in that room, broken, bruised, but still standing. What would happen next? The days that followed felt like walking through fog. The palace staff noticed the tension, but asked no questions. That was the unspoken rule. See everything, say nothing. Lady Victoria Pemberton disappeared from society overnight. One day she was at garden parties and charity luncheons. The next, her name was erased from every guest list. No explanation was given. None was needed. Those who understood the palace knew what silence meant. Kate returned to her duties with renewed purpose. School visits, hospital openings, charity work. But something had shifted in her demeanor. She smiled the same way, waved to crowds with the same grace. But her eyes were different, stronger, less apologetic. William watched his wife with quiet admiration. They'd been through so much together. His mother's death when he was young, the constant media scrutiny, the pressure of knowing their lives would never be private. But this was different. This had been an attack from within. And Kate had stood her ground one evening. They sat in their private quarters at Kensington Palace. William poured 2 glasses of wine. The children were asleep. The night was quiet. "You were remarkable," he said, handing her a glass. Kate smiled faintly. "I was angry. You were both." She sipped her wine and looked out the window. London glittered in the darkness. Millions of people living their lives, unaware that the fairy tale they imagined about royalty was so much more complicated. "Do you think she meant it?" Kate asked. "Camilla's apology?" William considered this carefully. "I think she meant it in that moment. Whether she can sustain it is another question. Fear makes people do desperate things. Insecurity, even more so." I nodded. "Your grandmother understood that. That's why she prepared. She knew human nature. She knew survival," William said. "She spent 70 years navigating attacks and affection, criticism and celebration. She learned to trust carefully." There was a knock at the door. One of William's private secretaries entered with an envelope. "This just arrived for Her Royal Highness." Hand-delivered. Kate took the envelope. Heavy paper, expensive, the kind used for formal correspondence. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single card, handwritten in elegant script. "Catherine, I wanted you to hear this from me directly. I've asked Victoria never to contact me again. What she did was unforgivable, and my part in it equally so. I cannot undo the past weeks, but I can promise you this: I will not stand in your way. You have earned your place in this family. The people see it. Charles sees it. I will try to see it too. Camilla Kate read it twice, then handed it to William. He read it in silence. It's a start, he said finally. It's an admission, Kate corrected. That's more than I expected. She folded the note and placed it back in the envelope. She wouldn't frame it, wouldn't save it as proof. Some things were meant to be acknowledged and then released. The next morning, Kate had a meeting scheduled with the Royal Foundation. Plans for a new mental health initiative for young mothers. But before that, she made an unexpected stop. She drove herself to a small chapel on the Windsor estate, the place where Queen Elizabeth had often gone for private prayer. No cameras, no guards, just silence and stone and centuries of history. Kate sat in a wooden pew near the back. Light filtered through stained glass windows, painting colors across the floor. She thought about Richard Ashford, about loyalty, about the burden of keeping secrets to protect others. She thought about Elizabeth, the queen who had worn her crown for so long that people forgot she was also a woman, a mother, a grandmother who worried about her family the way any grandmother would. I'll try to make you proud, Kate whispered to the empty chapel. I'll try to be brave. She didn't expect an answer, but somehow sitting in that quiet space, she felt seen, protected, understood. When she returned to the palace, there was a surprise waiting. Richard Ashford stood in the entrance hall. He looked uncomfortable in such formal surroundings now that he was no longer in service. But he'd come for a reason. Mr. Ashford, Kate said warmly. I didn't expect to see you again so soon. He held out a small wooden box. Simple, unadorned. The Queen asked me to give you this. If things went as she hoped, if you stood your ground and found your strength. Kate took the box carefully. Inside was a brooch, delicate silver, shaped like a small bird in flight. She recognized it immediately from photographs. Elizabeth had worn it often in her younger years. She said to tell you that birds are most beautiful when they fly free. Not caged, not clipped, free. Kate's eyes filled with tears. She held the brooch gently, as if it were made of glass. Thank you, she whispered. For everything, Richard nodded once. Then he turned and walked away. His duty truly finished now. Kate stood in the grand hall, holding the brooch. Sunlight streamed through tall windows. Outside, life continued. Tourists, traffic, the world spinning on. But in that moment, Kate felt something she hadn't felt in weeks, maybe months' peace. She had faced the storm. She had spoken her truth. And she had learned that sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't fighting back. It's refusing to. It's become what they accuse you of being. Part 6, 3 months passed. Spring arrived in London with its usual mixture of rain and sudden sunshine. The palace gardens bloomed with tulips and daffodils. Life, stubborn and beautiful, pushing through cold ground. Kate wore the Queen's brooch often now, pinned to her coat during public appearances. A small silver bird that most people didn't notice. But those who knew, knew. It was a statement, a reminder, a promise kept. The relationship between Kate and Camilla remained careful, polite. They appeared together at state functions, smiled for photographs, maintained the illusion of unity that the monarchy required. But there was distance now, a border neither cross. Some wounds heal. Others simply scar over. Charles grew into his role as king with more confidence. The early months had been uncertain, shaky, but crisis, Kate realized, had a way of clarifying purpose. He was more decisive now, more present. Less caught between past and present, William and Kate's children grew taller. George became more serious, carrying the weight of knowing his future. Charlotte asked questions that had no easy answers. Louis remained blissfully unaware that his life was anything but ordinary. They protected that innocence fiercely. Richard Ashford returned to his cottage in the countryside. He tended his garden, read his books, lived quietly, but occasionally, a handwritten note arrived from Kensington. Palace, updates, gratitude, connection. He kept them in a drawer beside letters from Queen Elizabeth. Proof that loyalty transcends death. Lady Victoria Pemberton tried several times to rehabilitate her reputation. She gave an interview to a small magazine claiming she'd been misunderstood, that her intentions had been misinterpreted. But no one in society believed her, or more accurately, no one wanted to risk association with her. The palace had not made a public statement, but their silence was louder than any condemnation could have been. In aristocratic circles, exile doesn't require announcement. It simply is. On a Tuesday afternoon in late May, Kate visited a primary school in South London. The children had prepared drawings, performed a song, asked impossible questions with beautiful honesty. One little girl, no more than 7, raised her hand nervously. "Miss Kate, are you a princess or a queen?" Kate knelt down to the girl's eye level. "I'm a princess now. But someday, I'll be a queen." "What's the difference?" the girl asked. Kate thought about this carefully. About everything that had happened. About Elizabeth's recordings, Camilla's emails, Richard's courage, her own journey from uncertainty to strength. "A princess is given a title," Kate said gently, "but a queen earns respect, not through power, but through how she treats people, through truth and kindness, through being brave even when she's afraid." The little girl nodded seriously, as if this made perfect sense. That evening, Kate told William about the interaction. They were walking through Kensington Gardens. Private time. No security visible, though they were there. "Always there." "You gave her a good answer," William said. "I gave her the truth," Kate replied, "the way your grandmother would have." William stopped walking. He turned to face his wife. The setting sun cast golden light across the grass. In the distance, people walked dogs and pushed strollers. Normal life. The kind they could observe, but never fully join. "She would be proud of you," William said. "Not just for how you handled Camilla, but for who you've become. The person you've chosen to be despite everything." Kate smiled. "I had good examples. Your mother taught me that authenticity matters more than perfection. Your grandmother taught me that strength isn't about never falling. It's about always getting back up." They walked on. Hand in hand, two people carrying impossible weight with grace. Back at the palace, Camilla sat in her private rooms. She'd received word that Kate had worn the Queen's brooch again today. The small silver bird. The one Elizabeth had loved, it should have made her angry, jealous. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Relief. Relief that the burden of competing was over. Relief that she could stop performing and simply exist. Relief that maybe in time there could be peace. She picked up a pen and began to write. Not an apology this time. Not an explanation. Just a simple note, Catherine. The garden at Highgrove has a new rose variety. I thought of you when I saw it. If you'd like cuttings for Kensington, let me know. CIT was small. Insignificant, perhaps. But reconciliation doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in quiet moments. In olive branches offered without demand, in choosing connection over division. The next morning, Kate replied, Camilla, I would love cuttings. Thank you for thinking of me. Catherine, no flourishes. No false warmth. Just honesty. And somewhere in whatever space exists beyond this world, Queen Elizabeth smiled. Because she had known something that takes most people a lifetime to learn. The crown is not what makes a queen. Character is, and the future of the monarchy. The real future wasn't held in jewels or titles. It was held in the hearts of people who chose integrity over image, who chose truth over comfort, who chose to stand firm when it would have been easier to bend. Kate looked at the brooch on her dresser. The small silver bird, forever frozen in flight, forever free. She picked it up and pinned it to her jacket.